Good afternoon. How are you? Well, it's 41 degrees. The wind is 12 miles an hour. It's on my mind because I could feel it. It doesn't seem to be affecting my ability to speak to you on the phones at this point, and I hope that's because of the shape of the roads and so forth. We'll see. The humidity is about 67%. Thank you, Thomas Jefferson, for that report. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, I pay homage to Jefferson, who daily kept track of the weather. And so I've labeled this section of a walk and talk Jefferson's from time to time, except when I overlook him. Today is Sunday, the day of the talking heads. And in my mind, I listen to these things, and then when I come out here, I try to synthesize them. And based on the fact that it's still residing in my head, I think this is probably the most important one because it tells something about the nature of America under the Trump administration. It is Guantanamo. Guantanamo is a heinous place. It is our American gulag. It is a stain upon our claim to be democratic and free, to be a place that's fair, to a place that's impartial, a place that's not angry about people we disagree with, or that we resort to the Eighth Amendment to punish those who disagree with whatever our current values are. And so Guantanamo is a place in which none of these things that are our proudest moments in American history are lost in this savage dragnet of claimed migrants who are the worst criminals in America. And perhaps those others that have orders in which they're supposed to leave already. They have established several tents, a tent city at Guantanamo in addition to the buildings that are there. If these are truly violent migrants, you're just going to put them on cots? I don't think so. So I don't think we're getting the straight scoop on this, and nobody seems to be extracting the facts of the case. I can imagine a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request, would probably take 3 years to get answered. But here are a couple of things. As a guy who spent a fair amount of his life, in criminal and civil cases, in and out of federal and state courts, let's take a migrant. Okay, say migrant one is in Chicago. We know they had raids there. And I pick him up. Now, is he not in custody? But he's a killer and you know that. And how do you know that? Was he convicted of it? And is he on bail? That doesn't make sense. Is he on appeal? That doesn't make sense. Was he arrested for a crime, but he hasn't been prosecuted yet? And so we're shimmying him off the stage before any of the, quote, due process rights that do apply to migrants, immigrants, aliens in America. It's a long case, long ago decided, and that's the rule of law. Okay, so I have a guy from Chicago, or a woman, more likely a guy, and I'm taking him to Guantanamo. Now, he's dangerous. I'm going to put him in a cell that we kept earlier prisoners who were terrorists. Is that what we're doing? Are we going to play music all night, clanging? Are we going to keep them in the dark? We're going to keep them cold. What are we going to do with these prisoners? Is it legal to take that prisoner from Chicago and put him in this camp? Only days ago, I joked about being at a camp with a cot on our Melbourne show. And I thought then it was likely going to happen. And I was talking about civilians, that is, other than the alleged prisoners. So I put him down in Guantanamo. Now, if there are cases in progress, say they were indicted for the murder of 3 people, okay, but they haven't had their trial, hasn't entered a plea of guilty, he's in Guantanamo, how does he get a lawyer to consult with? And is he the subject of a libel, a defamation, a false story to make the case that, hell, we had to put him in Guantanamo. We took him off the street. Well, whoa. You took him off the street, but if he's a murderer and you have enough information to seize him, to deport him, then how could he have been on the street? Okay, so you get my point. Could we trust anybody speaking on behalf of the Trump government to be telling us the truth? No, we can't. In fact, ages ago, when asked about what did I think of what Trump said, I said the only time you can believe what he says is when he makes an admission against his own personal interest. In other words, he confesses something because he's not on top of it. And he's not the smartest man, despite his claims to the contrary. So there's that. Now, the other thing I noticed about the talking heads, which I could pay more attention to while doing other things, was what I call the Fox interruption, the talk-over Fox approach for guests. And I think we have to send to school hosts who rightly expect civility when it can't be expected anymore, because that's not the handbook that the Trump administration uses. And the Republicans are flooding the shows with Republican speakers, leaving silent the opposition. But the worst is when a legitimate question is asked and ignored, and the guest talks over them. We have to stop that. And there's a glib response that comes. And I think if hosts had not thought of this before, then they have to be schooled and decided on how they're going to approach this phenomenon, which is exactly what they do. They being the R's. They being anybody in Trump's, that's interesting, Trump's orbit. So the combination of Tub and Trump, I guess, I don't know. Anyhow, and there's a theme that maybe I should have started with, but I think it's equal to what I did start with, because I was talking about Guantanamo. A part of our history that refutes our claims for being exceptional and free and just and right. It's not any of those things. And so the thing that I think we have to pay attention to is that we can't minimize the contrast / conflict / debate / war. This is the greatest war, perhaps in the American experience, since our independence, for equality and civil liberties. There's been nothing like this challenge to America since the Civil War or the Civil Rights period. And so when people act as if I'll get to it tomorrow, I'll take out the garbage tomorrow. Nope, you can't do that. You have to think now. And you have to think not just defensive. You have to think offensive. You have to say, okay, I blocked that punch. Now I'm going to hit you in the keister, in the mouth, in the ear. I'm going to bring you down, metaphorically speaking. And we have the tools. But we're going to look up someday, and everybody's going to be so intimidated, there won't be anyone to fulfill their role as a judge or as an office holder. We have had some great profiles of the people who've been affected adversely by what's going on. Now, I know today is, kind of a party day. People who follow football closely, and I don't, I confess, I have a missing male gene. Don't get me wrong, if I see these guys run down the field, I think of my younger days when I'd risk my ankles and head doing something like that. But I guess I'd watch movies instead. But I'll be watching the Super Bowl. And I want us to think about the Super Bowl in the context of the ever discriminating administration of Trump. Now, the last Super Bowl, 2020, I guess, we saw in the end zone a statement, "End racism." That's taken down for this Super Bowl. So does it mean racism is ended, or does it mean we don't care anymore about ending racism? Marr, whom I enjoy, is wrong when he says, "I'm glad they did that. It didn't matter." It does matter. Words matter, symbols matter, and actions certainly matter. And to put that sign there and then to remove it under this administration is a statement that's absent all but the raising arm of Musk. So that's what we have to keep in mind. Are we embracing racism by trying to satisfy he who would be our dictator? And so are we defaulting to what bully Trump wants? I think so. Now, there's a test that we can do today, which is an interesting one, because it involves a strongly independent player, entertainer, who's on the half-show calendar for the Super Bowl. We have another opportunity, therefore, to read the tea leaves, if you will, with Trump in attendance, unless that's changed, at the Super Bowl. Now, the person I'm talking about is Kendrick Lamar. And many of you know his famous diss rap, "Not Like Us." He just won 5 Grammys the other night. He's the halftime act. He disses Drake, who's a popular Canadian rapper, and they've had this long feud going back and forth. And he's, well, attacked and spoken more broadly than that. So it's a fairly controversial song, and he makes it clear in a, well, you just have to listen to it yourself. And so the question is, this marvelous production that is his is thought to be a cultural anthem. It's hip hop, and he issued it free. So it's spread far and wide. And it begins with a password that comes from Sixth Sense, if you remember the movie. He whispers, "I see dead people." Now, it moves quickly, and it's not to everybody's taste, but you might try it. And if I have this right, he had 700 million streamed it after he removed any copyright protection from it. So it's been thought to be a hit, interestingly, in the recent presidential campaign, cited by Democrats. So I don't want to conceal this aspect of it. So the question is, will Kendrick give us the pure, unvarnished anthem, "Not Like Us"? Now, there are words in there that'll trouble some people. And it's kind of interesting. We do, under Trump, the most heinous acts, but we're so sensitive about the words that fairly describe them. So you'll know, because this will be posted before the show, unless there are leaks about it. And the question is, will it be made family friendly? So there's that. So where do we stand? We have to be vigorous. We have to speak. I'm of the view that the Democrats are irrelevant to this debate. I'm a lifelong Democrat, a genetic Democrat. I never thought of working anyplace else, and I still think I am a Democrat. But sometimes the wheels and springs and the political leadership pause, trying to figure out what they should do. And the longer they pause, the fewer alternative actions are they able to take. And that's where we are now, trying to figure out what's safe. The truth is, none of it's safe. There's danger all around us in a political and governmental sense. And the nation, after it gets through controlling and discriminating against people who are non-white, we're going to turn on those among us that don't fit either, because of some of the remarks I've made, but others have said more visibly and with greater effect. So, here I am, out in the somewhat chilly weather with the sunlight, which is nice, among my cathedral of trees, and enjoy the game, but keep in mind, we have our own fight after that. All the best. Bye.